Listen, here's the uncomfortable truth nobody likes admitting out loud the moment real pressure hits. Most prepared people don't rise to the occasion. They shrink, freeze, or quietly unravel. Not because they're weak, but because they've been training for the wrong enemy. They stockpile gear, memorize checklists, binge survival videos, but they forget the one variable that always shows up first in any crisis: their own biology. And biology doesn't care about your gear wall or your perfectly organized go bag. Biology only cares about what it thinks will keep you alive in the next 30 seconds. If you've ever felt your heartbeat jump during a surprise exam, imagine that same heartbeat when the lights suddenly go out, the air turns cold, the world outside feels wrong, and your brain whispers, "This is not normal." That's when you learn the real reason people collapse. Stress isn't loud. It's subtle. It sneaks in like a fog, hiding your rational thoughts under layers of adrenaline, fear, and sensory overload. You lose fine motor skills before you even notice. Your vision narrows, you miss small details that used to be obvious, and here's the kicker: most people train their gear, not their reaction. This is why the first survival insight is brutally simple. You don't default to your highest level of training, you default to your most familiar habit. If your habit is panicking quietly, second-guessing yourself, or relying on ideal conditions, then that's exactly what will surface. Survival instructors call it cognitive lag. Your body is already reacting while your mind is still catching up. People think they'll calmly analyze the situation, no under pressure. Your brain slices off everything non-essential to focus on the fastest path to safety. That's useful when a tiger is chasing you. It's terrible when the situation requires a calm decision. Understanding this doesn't magically fix it, but it gives you a weapon most people don't have: awareness of what your own brain does under strain. This section is based on practical field survival experience rather than formal academic sources. The second insight is that most people collapse because they overestimate their mental stamina. They think, "I'll be scared, but I'll push through." But mental fatigue is a slow-burning fuse. In an emergency, whether it's a blackout, an earthquake, or even a sudden medical scare, you burn through decision-making energy insanely fast. In psychology, it's called decision fatigue. Your brain uses glucose like a sports car uses fuel. When it runs low, it switches to autopilot, grabs the simplest option, and clings to it, right or wrong. That's why even trained people sometimes make bizarre choices in chaos. They follow the first familiar thought their brain recognizes, even if it makes no sense. The people who perform well aren't the toughest. They're the ones who build routines. Routines reduce decisions, and fewer decisions mean more mental energy for real problems. The third insight is probably the most surprising. The body panics before the mind does. Your heart rate spikes, blood flow shifts, breathing speeds up, palms get sweaty, all before you consciously feel afraid. These signals can trick you into thinking the situation is worse than it actually is. You interpret your own fear response as danger itself, which starts a feedback loop. You feel scared because you're scared. The method to break that loop isn't complicated. It's grounding. Focusing on sensory details stabilizes the mind because your brain can't panic and simultaneously process the texture of the ground, the sound of your breathing, or the feeling of air in your lungs. It forces your survival instinct to slow down. And the reason it works is biological. Your nervous system calms when you give it concrete sensory input instead of vague threats. This section is based on practical field survival experience rather than formal academic sources. Another reason people collapse is because they rehearse perfect scenarios, but nature delivers messy ones. It's easy to imagine yourself reacting bravely when everything goes exactly the way you pictured. But reality is allergic to expectations. Your flashlight might not be where you thought. Your phone might be at 2%. Something small might be slightly off, and suddenly the whole mental plan collapses like a house of cards. Adaptability saves more people than equipment ever will. Adaptability isn't being fearless, and it's being flexible. It's the willingness to change the plan even while your heartbeat is trying to convince you to shut down. That's why experienced responders say slow is smooth, smooth is fast. People who slow their thoughts even for one breath make decisions that keep them moving. The next insight is something survival psychology repeats over and over. People don't rise to the level of danger, they fall to the level of their self-awareness. If you've never watched yourself under real stress, you'll be blindsided by your own reactions. Some people freeze not because they're scared, but because they're trying to compute too much information. Some rush because doing anything feels better than the discomfort of staying still. Some shut down entirely because the situation doesn't match their mental model. Knowing your personal stress pattern is more valuable than any survival gadget. It lets you counteract your weaknesses before they sabotage you. This section is based on practical field survival experience rather than formal academic sources. Another reason prepared people fail is because they underestimate emotional load. Stress isn't just physical, it's social. Darkness changes how people behave. Confusion spreads. Small conflicts escalate. And if you're not mentally ready for other people's fear, you inherit it. Humans mirror emotions. It's a survival trait. And if one person panics, it ripples outward. The people who stay steady are the ones who mentally rehearse uncertainty, not perfection. They accept that things will go wrong. They expect delays, confusion, and emotional reactions, and because they expect it, they're not shaken by it. Calm becomes contagious too. And finally, people collapse because they confuse information with ability. Watching survival content, reading guides, learning facts, these are helpful, but they don't build the instincts needed in real pressure. Instinct comes from repetition, not dangerous repetition, just practicing simple, safe habits under mild stress. Things like staying organized, scanning your environment, keeping your emotions labeled instead of suppressed, and learning how your brain reacts when something unexpected happens. These habits create a sort of mental buffer. In a crisis, that buffer gives you just enough space to breathe, think, and choose, not react. So the real reason most prepared people still collapse under pressure isn't lack of gear, strength, or intelligence. It's that they never trained the one system that decides everything, the mind under stress. When that system is ignored, everything else, every tool, every plan, every checklist crumbles with it. But when that system is understood, you move differently, you think clearly, you stay grounded, you adapt fast, you become the steady point everyone else gravitates toward.